Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravata, and we're back again with another Real 50 Over 50 interview. And today we have Christine Campbell Rapin, and she is a business mentor and owner of Clear Acceleration. She helps business owners create what she calls their client growth engine. She brings a boardroom brain and a mentor's heart and has worked with more than 400 businesses, helping them generate over $1 billion in combined revenue. What drives her is watching amazing people struggle in their businesses simply because they're focusing on the wrong things. As she puts it, she considers it a privilege to ride shotgun on someone else's dreams and help change makers build thriving businesses. Welcome, Christine. Welcome,
Thank you.
welcome, welcome.
I'm
I'm
super
so
excited to
very
be here.
happy I'm happy to spend some time with you today, and I'm sure you can impart some wisdom. If you are watching live, put some comments in and we'll answer them. If you're watching on the replay, put your comments, questions, ideas, tag us, and we'll come back and we'll keep the conversation going. So let's just dive right in. One of the things that you said right before we started recording was you have an unexpected business and you get to do cool things with cool people.
Yes.
So what are some of these cool things you get to do?
No, I get asked a lot, like, how did you end up with what you have created? And I candidly tell you, I was invited in. I have this real clear world. I spent my whole life in the world of business. And on hindsight, I look back and it is a unique journey because I was in marketing and I've been in business development and I've been in the operation side and I've been at the money side. And of course, you cannot be in business without people. But I set out to be a great entrepreneur. That was my destination. I was like, I'm going to build something cool. I want to have my own impact. I want to create my own economy. And over time, I get a lot of invitations for coffee or glasses of wine, depending on how you know me. And people were like, how do you do what you do in the hours that you do it? And I'm like, business is really simple. It's not effortless, but I had this very unique background where I could see the connecting pieces. So today, people would be like, this is what I want to build. And over classes of conversation, I have the real privilege of having people share, maybe for the very first time, this is what I want to create. And I'm like, go do that. And they're like, nobody else responds that way.
Yeah.
And one of my very first clients, when we first met, she was like, well, I'm over here building an empire. And I'm like, okay, cool. And she's like, I'm sorry, what? And I'm like, who am I to judge your dream? She's like, you actually believe I could build an empire? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And if you need support, I'm a good person to ride shotgun with. And we became friends. We are still friends to this day. And she has made a lot of success and momentum out of her business. Everybody's dream is different.
Yeah.
I've got people that are trying to change, I'm going to say small town America, and bring regenerative business back into small town and change the way we do business instead of the big Walmarts, but small people helping other small people who have very big dreams and nothing about them is small. And I have people that care at their heart for humans at every age. I get to hang out with cool people doing cool things, and no two dreams are the same, but all of them possible.
Yeah, I love that. No two dreams are the same. There's too much out there of cookie cutters and templates and having to do everything one way, and it just doesn't work.
It doesn't
It
work.
works. It works.
And
It
people
works for
get
enough
into
people.
trauma because they're told it's their fault.
Yeah.
Like, I've had so many people come into my world, friends and clients, who have been like, I'm failing at business because I'm not winning in something that I took a course or I certified in, and everybody else but me is winning. I'm like, you're not the problem.
No.
The person who's guiding you doesn't have the skill set to get everybody across the finish line to the same degree. And having worked with so many businesses, the one thing I was really sure is there's foundations of business and a million ways to play the game.
Yeah.
Let's get to the foundations, and you decide what feels like oxygen and play your game the way you want to play the game to find your people who will want to play with you in that pathway. Yeah. And it's heartbreaking to watch people really spiral into more self-doubt in a world that's already wobbly because simply they took the 3 steps that was told and it didn't work for them.
Yeah. And
You're
then
not.
having to have that sunk costs conversation with them.
Yeah.
Like, you can't hold on to
And they're
that.
like,
Yeah,
but I spent all this money, I didn't get there. And I'm like, okay. And it doesn't mean that when you spend money with me, you won't get there either.
yeah,
I'm taking a very different approach to the way we do this. And the foundations, I don't know a single business that doesn't need them. And one thing I would say is a skill set, I know how to create money. Like, I've been hired to do that for corporates. I've been doing it for myself for years. And all of my clients make more money than they did before. I mean, it isn't because it's cookie cutter.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, the cookie cutter doesn't work. It works for enough people to keep selling it.
Well, there's enough volume of
Right.
things that I tell people. I told my client, telling my clients today, I said, there is a person at every price point.
Mhm.
What are your expectations?
Yeah. Oh,
You know, my big
expectations.
legacy with clients, when we're going to find clients, that's what we deliver from a service perspective. But the big legacy is I'm going to teach you how to think, and I'm going to teach you to trust yourself to think well
Yeah.
and to navigate anything you encounter. Because life will
That's
life at you. Your business will change, the economy will change, the politics will change, but you have a true north. Let's help you know how to navigate it.
mhm.
And you didn't get out to bed to buy that. It's just the bonus you get from learning from somebody at the foundational level.
And that foundational level right there is a key word,
Mhm.
because until you have that built, anything you build on top of that doesn't have sustainability.
Correct. You build a house of cards,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's not your fault. Like, most people don't come into the world of business with any idea that the foundations exist. And I know when I first started my business, I didn't play in this space because I honestly didn't believe I didn't aspirationally want to build a global consulting company.
Mhm.
I just kept having conversations. But what is true, and I was told by many people at the early days, nobody wants to play where you're playing
Mhm.
because you're actually going to have to deliver it. And I'm like, all of what that statement is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, of course, if I say I'm going to deliver it, I'm going to stand in my integrity and deliver it. And they're like, oh, people don't, that's not the way the game is played. I'm like, well, then I'm going to change the narrative.
Yeah. That's not my game.
It's not my game. And I'm like, and if you don't see the table you want to sit at, here's the
Yeah.
big thing. It's because you're meant to go build it.
Yeah.
And I was really aware that, just with my own checking in my own inner wisdom and my own conversation with God was like, what's the deal? And he's like, then I've served a purpose. Don't listen to people who say the foundations aren't important. And I started to say I could help you with that. And it didn't matter whether you were brand new and starting or you've been in business for 8 or 10 years. And suddenly it's like, I feel out of sync. And it's like, because we don't know the foundations,
Yeah.
or you've lost sight of them.
Mhm.
And maybe they were never created. And all of that's cool.
Mhm.
We'll handle them in any direction you need to, but they're not optional in my mind. And we've had this conversation. To me, they're non-negotiable.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Um, if you have the foundations in place, your business can change.
Yes, it'll always be able to evolve. It'll recognize when pivots are needed.
Mhm.
And here's the other piece that maybe you never knew was possible, but it can create stability. And I think we don't hear enough about the goal of stability.
Mhm.
Like, business owners, when they set out, lose sight really early on that the goal is stability.
Yeah.
Stability for themselves, control of their day, control of how much money they make. And what that means is when you get stability, what happens? Two things happen a lot. People blow up their own stability because they don't recognize it, and it's discomforting to be unstable because we've always been in something else. And you got to remember that, even in Coca-Cola's language, Coca-Cola still sells Coca-Cola. Like, after their disastrous of this major pivot where they introduced the new Coke and
Mhm.
almost killed their business, they were like, oh, let's back this up. Our goal was to do the stable, which is Coca-Cola. So now any flavor that gets introduced is done so for the full purpose of you
Mhm.
remembering that you like the original.
Mhm.
And I said, I don't know somebody, myself, looking in the mirror, wants to constantly be on fire, constantly be worried about money, constantly be worried about things. And that's why I said building the engine is important, because the engine is what builds stability. And as a consequence to that, the other thing that happens is people have to remember, just because you're in a season of change doesn't mean the market is changing with you. And just because you're bored doesn't mean the market's bored either. So you need
Mhm.
somebody to bring that fresh perspective. Because I said, if you want a business that's durable, whether it's for 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, whatever, all of that comes down to building a foundation.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that
And I like beautiful
foundation
stories,
becomes the
stable
barometer.
businesses. Everyone laughs. I'm like, no, seriously, I love beautiful, stable businesses. If you want to take a month out of your business, let's build it for that. You want to work one less week in every month, no problem. Let's build it like that. Let's have this working. It's glorious.
Yeah, it really is. So on your website, there were you had 5 foundations every
Mhm.
scalable business needs.
Yeah,
Maybe we should talk through those and just
sure.
because I'm with you. You have to have those foundations. They
Yeah,
become your barometer for everything.
yeah,
Like every question. Now this is your advisory board almost.
yeah,
Like a business foundation. Will this work? Will this work? Is this a
yeah.
good idea?
100%. And a lot of
Instead
people
of
are like,
asking,
this is me in straight talk. It's the best I can from my expertise. But the first thing is the most important piece of your business is your next client.
yeah,
Okay. So that means your ability, foundation number one, your ability to spot, identify, and attract your next buyer is critical. And too many people get caught serving their current clients in a language with their current clients, but your next buyer is not in the same place in their decision making continuum. So that's
mhm,
pillar number one. And a lot of people don't have this nailed down.
mhm,
It's an intersection point. I don't think niching is about Betty Lou's in Boise, Idaho with red hair, 2 dogs and a cat, and $100 in her back pocket.
mhm,
That's not going to help you find a buyer. It will help you do lots of marketing elements, true. But if your purpose is client revenue stability, you've got to understand buying behavior. So, buying behavior and spotting the pattern is number one. Number two is you have to choose how you want to play the game because
mhm,
you must be able to influence somebody to go from curious to paid client. And that's a journey, a longer journey than you are truthfully maybe setting yourself up for because a person is distracted. There's a million choices. And you have to understand there's a human evaluating against their own biases, but you get to pick your lane. I don't care whether you want to do SEO, speaking, websites, whether you want to do organic traffic, paid traffic, whether you want to do speaking, networking. There's a million ways to play the game, but you've
mhm.
got to pick your lane and get really good at that skill
Yeah.
because you are constantly moving a stranger from curious to paid client. So that's pillar number two. Pillar number three is the offer. You have to understand that the offer has to be in the eyes of your next customer. Are you a liked expert or are you the must hire? What do they value about the result? And the result has to be meaningful enough to them to be higher than the investment or money doesn't move hands. It doesn't matter whether it's a need product, like I need something, or an aspirational, I want something. There's trades to be had with available resources. It has to be seen in the eyes of the buyer. And we often lose sight of that because we get our own justifications in the way, which is why when people make offers, they get really caught in the features. Like it includes 2 of this, a balloon, a rainbow, a unicorn, and a lamb. And the buyer's like, oh my God, I'm terrified of the menagerie. Like, and they back out. But
I don't want
we
to
have to
lie.
get the offer clear and we have to be seen as a must hire. Because
Mhm,
if we stay in likable expert, we don't get paid. Pillar number 4 is about leadership. You are in a human business by its very nature. So people are part of the equation. First person you have to lead is yourself. So do what's required to create the results. Second thing is you have to lead your clients predictably to the results they said they wanted and invested with you to get guidance on to achieve. And you might also be leading team, whether those are contractors or other influence people that create the deliverable, your tech stack and other things like that. You guide it. And you're also guiding potentially advocates. So that could be your power partners, your referral network, other things, but you have to lead. And we often think about leads as just like the outside, like we're looking for the person who's the buyer, but I'm like, they're a lead for a reason. The language is important.
mhm.
You're leading them to you, and you must lead them to the result. So how are you leading? It's pillar number 4. And number 5 is business math. Like this is a dollars and cents game. This is a reward and resources game. And we need to understand that inputs drive outputs. Always. There's an equation to that. And we have to treat our business like a business for it to reward us like a business. And The inputs create stability or the roller coaster. So let's talk about that because you're choosing the inputs through your daily actions. And I think if you can go back to these 5 foundations and think about, what do I not have yet?
Mhm.
What's the next priority? All 5 are needed, but the sequence is just built the way I've told them. First, you always have to worry about clients. Then you have to know how to guide them. Then you have to be clear that you're leading offers and you're thinking every day about the complexity of people and what are the metrics.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah. And one thing that I'd love to add to your list is listening,
Yes.
because that's where it all starts.
Mm-hmm.
You have to really understand what people want, what they need, what they value, what they care about, what they're afraid of, what they're excited about. And that could all come from just listening.
Yeah. It's the first and foremost piece of the business. And so often we're keen to solve, keen to tell the how. And I'm like, that's a response.
Hmm.
Make sure the question was asked first. And the only way you know if the question was asked first is if you were listening.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to do a presentation. God, this had to be more than 10 years ago. And it was called Shut Up and Listen. And it was always very well received.
Well, it's like we all think we're amazing communicators, and yet communication breakdown is the number one reason why things and missed expectations happen.
Yeah. Well, it's not
Because
one
we think
way.
we're great.
It's not one way. That's the issue.
Yeah, true story.
It takes some back and forth. So, like, when you're working with clients, what is like the number one thing that you see, like, across, small clients, big clients, the one thing that trips everyone up?
It is, first off, it is at every level, there's a knowledge gap of what's required in the sequence.
Hmm.
And second thing that I see time and time again is it's like an exhale that happens. You must first get clear with what you want. And often I'm the whispered first time people even shared how audacious it is. And I think people are not dreaming big enough. And the second thing is that exhale when it's like, I can have what I want.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of socially acceptance in the business world about doing this for other people. And it sounds good, and it is. I'm not saying it doesn't have altruism in its very veins.
Hmm.
But truthfully, you are here to live your story. You're here to give with your expertise to the gifts of the world. So when people say I'm doing this for other people, whether it's the altruism of, your partner, your spouse, your kids, somebody else, it will get you started, sure, but it relies on motivation. You cannot build a business on motivation alone. You have to do it from a compelling internal lit fire, which is I need my time here to matter. And I watch people break through to this relief of I get to have what I want.
Yeah.
I get to have what I want. Oh my God, I have what I want. And it's a journey and it's not linear.
No.
But truthfully, there's $1 million opportunity everybody's got inside their brain. And the issue isn't whether you can have it. It's not. Like if you can see it in your mind, it's possible. You need fuel sources, you need drive, you need lots of things along the way. But it all comes down to personal want.
Yeah.
And we've been coached and cultured to think that it's selfish to want. Like it's actually the most natural thing in the world. When you were young, you wanted food, you squawked. You wanted to be held, you moved. And we now need to remember, especially at this stage of life that we're at for this audience, we get to go after what we want.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you don't take other people along the ride. And remember, we had quite an interesting conversation with my husband and I earlier in my business journey. And he was sharing space with me during COVID, didn't last very long. He has an office in the basement now because it's like, you are constantly talking to people. It's so weird. And I think, because I'm an introvert, so he's like, it's super weird because I just find all of this strange. But I was starting to get into a place where I bought into the socially acceptable, I get to do this for other people. And I was telling a story somewhere in the day, and he said, I need to check you, because that vision board that you have that sits on your office, 95% of it is not us. So don't believe for a second you're doing this for us. We benefit, yes. We love who you are in the journey, but that vision is your compelling need, your compelling story. You're the engine of it. So don't think that you do it for us. It's not accurate. You do this because it's like breathing for you. And we benefit from that spillover of the want lived, the want having oxygen. And at the time it was like really, oh my God, can I be that selfish to want this big thing? Which, was evolved in many, many ways over the years. But I'm really clear. And it's the biggest question I ask people when we're debating, coming into my world in any way, shape, or form. Why are you here? What do you want? How can I be of service to help you? It could be connection. It could be a resource. It could be a service. It's also just, I see you. Because you don't know that you're not told often. You get to have what you want. You get to pursue what you want. And truly nothing will move at fast momentum until you're bought into your want.
Yeah.
And I said, I can be the resource. I have got the business skills to make any business work. I'm a fuel source. I'm not the spark. You're the spark. And I always ask everybody who I make an offer to, is your fire lit? Because it's not my job to light it. Yeah. It might be the job to hold the vision on occasion, because there'll be times when you need to gift it to somebody else to hold because it's heavy.
It's heavy, audacious. Yeah.
But that's okay. That's my job and I will hold it. But I'm always there to give it back. And I'm also there to say, actions do not equal what's going on over there. Do you want it? And it always goes back to want.
I was in my 50s before somebody asked me what I wanted, and I didn't know how to answer. Because
we have that conversation a lot with people. Do you not know what you want? It's like, no, you've just forgotten how to articulate it. Because in the journey, life is funny. There's a lot of 2x4s that hit you hard. And there's, I want different things in different seasons. And I think this, the 50 seasons is a different season of, I get to be me now. Or like, if you've had children, your children are less dependent on you. Your relationship with your partner, if you have one, have changed enormously as resources, jobs, and focus and health have changed. And I debate this with my bestie all the time. She's like, people don't know what they want. I said, they do know what they want. They've forgotten to say it. You can ask any young kid, what do you want to be? And they can tell you. We didn't learn that skills. Like we were all creators and we suddenly forgot we could create. And I said, well, what if you just had somebody to whisper it to? And I've seen so many, I have a 50-50 split of men and women are my clients. And I remember having this powerful conversation with a client who was in her 70s. And I said, no, truly tell me what you want. I know what you need or you think you need. We've talked about that. But what do you want? And she's like, who am I to want that? And I'm like, let me just introduce you to yourself. Yeah. You're the person who really wants this. And she's like, wow. And I'm like, why do you want it? Why is it meaningful to you? And what are you willing to put in the resources around to have it? Because if you can see it, you can build it. It's totally possible. The bigger question in your mind is it plausible for me? Yeah. And I'm here to say, sure.
One of the biggest lessons I've been gifted through this whole interview series, and I think you're the 123rd, 124th interview, is that it is not about reinvention. It's about remembering. And it's so incredibly powerful when you can bring these parts together, all of the things that you left behind for one reason or another, and reclaim them. And
they all served a purpose.
Oh my goodness. I mean, like watching people do this is just, it is the greatest honor of my life.
Yeah. And it is, it's that privileged piece. It's like, I didn't set out to think, I wouldn't even, to that point, I wouldn't have been audacious enough to know that I could until people kept saying like, there's a purpose for all these things. And when I first started and I was somebody said, I'll pay you to guide me. And I was like, that's weird. I'm sure that's exactly the words that came out of my mouth. I'm like, that's weird. That'd be weird. That's weird. And I remember having a conversation with somebody who was very passionate about the coaching industry, and I don't see myself as a coach. I'm absolutely someone who's used to leading other people. And so I said, I'm a leader. I'm a mentor. I'm going to be disruptive for you. A coach just helps you find your way. I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, this is the next step. Different service deliverables. But he said to me, all those lessons, all those landmines, all those really good success stories where it worked well serve a purpose. If people are offering to exchange value, which is in this case currency, pay attention. And eventually, you're going to get hit by a 2x4. And truthfully, that's what happens. It's like, I don't know what I want. You know what you want. The 2x4 constantly comes around.
Yeah. It's Elizabeth Gilbert in her book, Big Magic, talks about opportunities.
Yeah.
And she talks about how they're all around us. Yes. And it's for us to claim them. And if we don't claim them, they go to somebody else.
They do. And there is both beautiful freedom in the knowledge that there's another opportunity always around the corner. And there's also a moment when you have to sit with yourself and say, if I keep avoiding that opportunity, will I feel hope or disappointment and move? And when I'm talking to people, I said, what is scarier? Betting on somebody else with an unknown outcome, or betting on yourself when you're wired to survive?
Yeah.
You are wired to survive. So I've got to think in my mind, it's like, if I'm still breathing, one, your business should help you breathe, should provide the fuel, should give oxygen. But then there's a purpose to that. Because I'm really sure, not an ounce of doubt in my mind, I'm going to stand on another landmine. I'm going to blow something up. I'm a human who's a work in progress. Like, I know growth. We think growth is this thing we do in a book or listen to a podcast. I'm like, no, growth is sticky and messy and all of it, all the feels.
Yeah. And you have to go through it.
I want to keep growing.
You have to go through it. There's no like circling
around. The only way
it.
through is through. So I'm sure I'm going to stand on another landmine. I'm sure I'm going to go, wow, there's a before and after. And I'm also going to trust myself and the world that lives and guides me. It says if there's breath in my body, there's a purpose to it.
Yeah.
But that goes back to if I stop breathing, and I reach that milestone, at some point it's coming, I want to sit and have that conversation of, I lived a well life because I served the purpose of what I was here to. I got to do what I wanted. And freedom of choice is the ultimate. We pursue it. We forget we have it. Yeah. We gift it away. And I'm here to also invite people to, what if you really just went after what you wanted?
Yeah.
Because if you have a great idea, I can help you commercialize it. And that's what we do. We can help people commercialize ideas. Is it going to be comfortable? Not a chance.
No.
Not a chance. So let's just be clear. And I'm going to be forever more in your head. So just take a disclaimer, because you're either going to like this voice. It's not going to be very comfortable. But if our values are in alignment, I'm sitting on the same side of the table as you. Yeah. I'm here in shotgun, not in the driver's seat. And I'm not here across the table from you. I'm beside you.
And let's just swing over to values for a moment, because earlier on you mentioned, the persona with the redheaded woman from Indiana or whatever it was. And when you can cross the Rubicon from, creating those cartoon stick figures into focusing on shared values. Wow.
Well, that's when you say I'm hanging out with cool people doing cool things.
Yeah.
And there's innately at a values level, mutual respect.
Yes.
And that's if I look at my core values, integrity is number one. So I say what we're going to say, deliver what we promised. If we're in communication, there has to be that. And it follows secondly with that mutual respect, which is we may not align in every opinion, in every choice, but there is a curiosity innately that says, I'm curious to understand that perspective because it's not the one I hold.
Yeah.
And when we come from curiosity, that's the only thing I can't teach somebody. And I remember always through my corporate career, it was what I hired for. Because my job as the leader, and I work for some organizations that are promote from within, very, very big organizations like Procter & Gamble. You don't get to be the CEO unless you were acquired or trained from the bottom. So this idea that I'm measured on my leadership. I'm measured on my ability to train you a skill, but you have to be the one who asks questions. And I think in the world that we're living in now more than ever, we're losing our ability to critically think because it's not taught formally in school. It's less taught in corporate now than it was 10 years ago because middle managers are like, I don't have bandwidth for this. Terrible excuse, but that's the narrative that's out there. And so I think it's super cool when you can say, well, I'm here to help you critically learn to think because of the expertise of wisdom of 50 years or more on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
You can't skip the learning. The lived experience is what's valued.
Yeah.
That's where all the magic comes from.
Yeah. I call it earned wisdom.
Yeah. It's a wise way to say it. Yeah, it's like, and I have a client of mine, I love her so much. She's like, my whole goal in life is to not make the same mistake twice. I make a lot of first mistakes. I'm like, well, then you're living.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to. It's the only way you learn. That's the only way you learn. And the curiosity piece is, I think that is, after listening, curiosity is the most important.
Mm-hmm. It's the most important attribute.
Yeah.
Because we can resource you. I said, if I see myself as a fuel source, my wisdom is a fuel source, my network is a fuel source, and like the one thing, it only is of value is if it's tapped into.
Yeah.
I can estimate and guess and things like this. And they said, but then I'm just entertaining. If I'm speaking before I've listened, and if there's not a question innately asked, you're entertainment.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's an option. But I'm like, nothing frustrates me more. And I'm like, I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to get you moving, and I'm here to guide you to the result. Yeah. Hopefully we're entertaining on the way, but that wasn't the goal line.
No, I raised my son since before he could speak with 2 sentences. One is, you always have an opinion. I always want to hear it. Mm-hmm. And the second one was, stay curious. I love you, stay curious. That's what I always tell him. I love you, stay curious. And if you're curious, you're never bored.
You're never bored. There's always something to discover. There's always a pattern to spot. There's always a deeper level to go to. And the first piece about your wisdom, I think, is so important. And it's a tenement that I hold really true in how we lead, in how we coach in our business, and how we guide people is you get to define your true north. The only reason you're hired is to solve a problem based on your opinion of what's needed. And the big reason I struggle with this world that we're living in AI is because so many people are outsourcing their opinion before they formed one. And it's aggregating a million people's ideas into a vanilla common where you now all sound generically the same. So while you sought that to stand out, you've ended up in what you didn't want, which is the same. And I said, you and I are 2 humans in a human experience in the present moment. And when we get hired in business, it's to forecast or solve a problem that hasn't yet arrived. We choose humans to bet on. His business is a human to human business, even in the world of supported AI. But I'm always so terrified when people are like, well, and I get into slight conflict with my clients and they're like, well, ChatGPT told me that these are the 10 big problems. And I'm like, and what's your opinion based on who you've talked to? And what's your opinion around each of them? It's like, well, let me check ChatGPT. I'll tell you. And I'm like, stop.
No.
I asked you to find 50 ways to do this. That's your ways, not ChatGPT's. Yeah. I want you to know how you will reward yourself because it needs to matter to you. And sure, if you run out of ideas, the ideas are not in the first 5. They're in the depths of your own silence, your own true north, your own check. What am I curious about? What do I want to live with? How do I feel like it's oxygen? And I'm constantly shocked and people maybe are a little discombobulated by the fact I'm like, why would you outsource your most important asset that makes you valued as a human being?
Because people view these tools primarily as a time saver or productivity tool. And that's not the way to do it.
Yeah. Well, and it can be, but you got to think about what your goal line is. And there's much truth to you can't skip the effort of lived experience. And I
Yeah.
don't mean that there are not shortcuts and there are great ways you can use the tools. I'm not saying that at all. Just remember, you're going to get hired for your opinion. That opinion has to be congruent, and it can evolve, but it has to be congruent, and you have to be able to explain that journey, because I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. I'm not the same person I was 30 years ago, but all of those pieces stack to make me form the opinions I hold today. Also know that that opinion is influenced and evolved based on everything that I put myself at curiosity around.
Yeah.
But people hire me for an opinion. And what's so important around that is don't be afraid to have one.
Yeah. Well, it's your opinion. It's
Yeah.
not an amalgamated
Yeah,
bot
it's
opinion.
yours. Because the people, I always giggle. It always makes me giggle and feel tickled pink around it, because people, when they come into our world and maybe they listen to our podcast or they're listening to this dialogue, I'm like, it's not edited. I don't have the skill set to edit. So let's just also talk about reality.
Yeah.
It's just not my skill set. So they're like, you're going to get exactly this. And you're going to choose to trust based on the experience of it. I have had so many more people in the last couple of years saying, they're this person on this platform, but they're this person in real life, and they're this person in their family life, and this person in business. And I'm like,
That's a lot
that's
of
just a
work.
trust break. And I'm like, that's the level of complexity I can't even buy into. You're going to get me exactly as you're going to get me. And it's really easy to know what that looks like. And if it's not the right room for you, I know somebody else is gifted enough to receive you.
Yeah.
And if you're in my world, you're like, oh,
you gotta be you wherever you are.
I hope so, but
Yeah.
people really are still struggle with that. Like, we know that that's a
too.
struggle, and it's also an evolution, because you watch as you get older, your opinion about how much you care for other people's opinion to the reality you reach when you're like, nobody's actually even caring. Nobody's spending that much time worried about my opinion. They're worried about their own.
Yeah, very true. On that note, we have come to a little more than 30 minutes. So I like to wrap up these interviews asking for a wisdom bomb, something, small and actionable that people could take with them, even though you've dropped them for the last half an hour.
I think the most important thing I want people to hear is that you get to go after what you want.
Yeah.
Like, you really do. And that will make your journey worth it. Will it be easy? No. Did they promise you it would be?
Who knows?
Do you trust yourself enough to bet on yourself? You get to go after what you want. And you need to be around communities who will see you at face value and not your backstory. And you want to be in rooms people who will, when you have a wild idea, they said, yeah, let's go do that.
Yeah.
Because they exist. Go pursue them.
Yeah.
If you're not sure, come by mine. You're welcome anytime.
That's so much fun when somebody sees your idea and gets excited about it.
Yeah.
That's special. All right. Well, please connect with Christine. Here is her website. She's also an author and a speaker, and she's got a podcast called Amplify Your Marketing Message. And you can access all of that on her website. And thank you for spending some time today. And if you're watching on the replay, come and put comments, questions, tag us, and we will come back and answer the questions. And keep coming back, because we've got interviews booked every Wednesday all the way into, I think, November at this point.
Awesome.
So happy Wednesday, everyone. And thank you, Christine.
You're very welcome.